So the newest episode of Invincible has fans saying that this is the worst episode of the series. But if I'm being honest, it is probably one of the best uses of a filler episode that I've seen in a long time. Spoiler talk for episode 4 of the newest season of Invincible. If you haven't seen my last video on the premiere, go check that out. But let's dive into this. So, my general thoughts on the actual episode itself is that I just think it's generic. Like this idea that a group of demons have to band together to stop somebody else from taking the throne of Satan and to restore his rightful power while doing so. Like, I think it's just generic, but I do like the interesting spin they put on Hell, which Damien Darkblood says to Mark when he recruits him to Hell. He says that Hell is not even like a realm where like souls go that are like evil and to be tortured. Like there are beings that are tortured, but they're not souls that were sent there. And he explains that maybe Earth is their version of heaven. And if that's the case, then I think this means that the Invincible universe is way more depressing than we first thought. And I know some people probably didn't gravitate towards that because of its depressing realization that every single character that's died in this show is actually dead. But if you're more of the religious type and you don't really jive with that whole take where Earth isn't heaven, it's more like that stage before you go to either one. Yeah, I can understand those people who do not vibe with that whole idea. But I do think it's an interesting take, and it does make the stakes much higher for the Invincible universe for whenever a character dies. Like, it truly means that you are gone. But yeah, overall, I just like that take on Hell. But what I really enjoy about this episode is the character development because we've seen from the finale of season 1 to now where Mark is constantly wrestling with his darker self, trying not to be his father, whether that be killing Angstrom Levy out of anger or when he intentionally killed Russ Livingston earlier in this season just so he could save the planet from further annihilation from the Sequids. And he is just depressed and he's just out of touch with how to be a true hero. I've literally seen so many videos of people calling him a fraud because of the way he acted during the Invincible War and specifically Conquest. So, with that being said, I just think that this was a breath of fresh air, for him to go to hell and to learn that not only is it all right to kill when necessary, you just have to regulate that usage. And also, more importantly, that doesn't mean you are a terrible person. And I just think that's actually kind of funny because it's like it took him to go to hell to realize that he's actually a good person. Like he teamed up with Satan's underdogs or lapdogs to fight for his right to the throne. And I just think that's actually kind of wild. Like, this is the literal devil that everybody tells the story of to not become or to end up where he's at. And speaking of Satan himself, he is actually a pretty chill dude when you get to know him. Yes, he tortures people, but he's just like a guy that's just like full of himself. Like, he really just loves power in a competitive way almost. And Volcanica, while she did not really have that much of a personality, I will say that when Mark had to wipe her head off, like for a gag, like 2 or 3 times, I thought that was pretty funny. And this whole story leads to Mark embracing his two sides. Like he embraces his darker half, he knows how to regulate it, and he just goes back to that lighter, hopeful person that we saw at the beginning of episode 1. And when he put on the blue and yellow suit again, like it was just a triumphant moment, especially when he had that smile. And the flight sequence almost mirrored that first flight sequence that he had in season 1. And I thought that was pretty good. So, yeah, another thing that people did not like about this episode is the fact that William's voice changed. Like he went from sounding like this
I'm your best friend. Best friends don't not tell best friends they're super
to sounding like
Mark is a superhero. I wonder if that means his, or
And if I'm being honest, I do not like this new voice actor because at least with Robot's voice change, he actually sounds similar enough to the point where if you didn't catch it, it'd be fine. But with him, it is such a noticeable change. And the way he talks too, like the demeanor of how he talks, it's just a different character entirely. Hopefully, the new voice actor settles into the role so it's not as jarring anymore. But speaking of William, he was talking to Eve about how she was pregnant and whether she should even tell Mark or keep the baby. And I'm not going to spoil that, but it is one of the most depressing things you'll see in this series. Omni Man comes back at the end with Alan, and I thought that was pretty good. It is definitely going to lead into one of the most heartbreaking conversation in this entire show with Debbie and Nolan and how she's moved on, how she felt about the betrayal, and how he's moved on to love his wife. Although that's going to be very complicated with Paul, who I'm actually rooting for, unlike another Paul. So overall, this episode is like a 7.5 out of 10. I just think that the plot and the general idea of the story is just generic, but I do like the character development, this whole build up of Mark coming back to terms with being just a hopeful guy again. Like he's willing to go cross the line when needed, but at the same time, he's not going to lose himself. But if you like this video, go check out another one. Specifically, go check out the premiere if you missed it. And go check out my episode 5 review when it pops up on the channel. So, yeah, see you guys.